our lawyers at the federal government who believe that this injunction is entirely unconstitutional, and it is for anybody who has a basic understanding of the law. You cannot have a low-level district court judge filing an injunction to usurp the executive authority of the President of the United States. That is completely absurd.
They all have to go back and learn civics because that is not right. That's White House press secretary and apparently amateur constitutional lawyer Karoline Leavitt reacting to the news that 2 separate federal judges ruled this week that the Trump administration illegally fired tens of thousands of federal workers across several agencies and that they must be reinstated.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and Donald Trump's bargain bin BS Barbie Karoline Leavitt got wrecked so badly on national television that even her crackerjack law degree couldn't save her. Karoline Leavitt, Donald Trump's latest talking face, thought that she could play constitutional lawyer on TV, but an MSNBC host absolutely wrecked her.
I mean, it's incredibly disturbing. Firstly, I don't know where she got her law degree. I suspect it was at Trump University online, but she is clearly misstating what the role of the courts are, right? These are 3 co-equal branches of government. I understand that one of the branches, the legislature, Congress, has sort of abdicated seemingly their entire role in this process. But the courts are doing their job, and even, quote, low-level federal judges who are federal district court judges, they have the ability to issue injunctive relief, and the executive branch must abide by it.
BS Barbie tried to argue that federal judges don't have the power to block Donald Trump's illegal actions. Well, let's just say that it didn't go well. Leavitt stood there full of piss and vinegar and 0 qualifications and declared you cannot have a low-level district court judge filing an injunction to usurp the executive authority of the President of the United States. That is completely insane. And seriously, where the hell did she get her law degree? Trump University? Because anyone with a basic understanding of civics knows that judges absolutely have that power. They don't need the president's permission to rule on the law. That's literally their job.
So it's deeply concerning to me to hear the president's own press secretary indicating that they may decide to do otherwise. And of course, we'll find out what's going to happen here because in our case, there's a report that's due on Monday as to what exactly the federal government is doing to make sure that they're reinstating these workers, these tens of thousands of federal workers who have been illegally terminated from their jobs.
Karoline Leavitt isn't some legal expert accidentally misspeaking. She's a glorified talking head whose entire job is to spew Trump's approved nonsense and hope nobody calls her out on it. Unfortunately for her, that didn't happen.
So when Republicans tell you that they want to give the power back to the people, well, this is what it looks like. This is why it's so important to pay attention and to vote, not just in your federal elections, but in your local and state races, because these are the people that are actually getting things done.
For years, Republicans and Trump have used states' rights as their go-to excuse. Anytime they didn't want to take responsibility for something, whether it was COVID response, abortion bans, or voting rights, they said that should be left up to the states. But now, the states are stepping up and holding Donald Trump accountable. And suddenly, Trump's team hates it. The same people who always claim to be for law and order are now attacking the courts the moment a ruling goes against them. But this case isn't even about some rogue liberal judge making up laws. It's about state attorneys general, elected officials from across the country holding Trump accountable for breaking the law. And that's why Karoline Leavitt is panicking. The very states Republicans swore should have power are now using that power to check Trump's reckless, illegal actions. And rather than admit that they were wrong, Trump's team is now trying to spin this as some kind of deep state attack on the presidency. Because once again, it's only law and order when they're the ones making the rules. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser, and the coalition of other state attorneys general took Trump's admission to court for legally firing tens of thousands of federal workers. These weren't political appointees. These were career employees, people with families, mortgages, bills to pay, thrown out with no warning in blatant violation of federal law. There are rules about this. If you're going to mass fire employees, you have to give 60 days notice. It's not a suggestion, it's the law. But Trump and Musk, in their unusual scorched earth approach to government, they just ignored it. Who's going to notice, they figured? Well, guess what? The states did. These attorneys general filed lawsuits. A federal judge reviewed the case and the ruling was clear. Trump's firings were illegal and those workers must be reinstated. And now Trump's people are crying about it. And here's where it gets even worse. Because what happens when you lose your job? You apply for unemployment. But guess what? You lose your job, you apply for unemployment, but wait, there's nobody left to process your application because Trump's people just fired the workers who handle unemployment claims. So now you're stuck in limbo, fighting for money that you're owed with no one to help you. And just to make it even crueler, many of these workers weren't fired for cause. They weren't given bad performance reviews. They weren't let go for incompetence. They were just labeled probationary and tossed aside as part of a mass purge. And now they're stuck in an impossible loop. They can't get their jobs back unless the ruling is enforced, and they can't get unemployment benefits because they were technically fired. It's a mess that innocent people are having to navigate. And state governments are the ones left picking up the pieces. They're the ones dealing with thousands of workers suddenly in financial freefall. They're the ones handling the influx of appeals, the legal chaos, the economic fallout. And that's exactly why the state attorneys general are fighting back. Because this isn't just a policy dispute. This is an administration breaking the law, throwing lives into turmoil and expecting no consequences. And now that the courts have ruled against them, they're scrambling for excuses. Leavitt is out there pushing the latest nonsense, trying to convince people that federal judges don't have the power to block Trump's illegal actions, which is complete nonsense. This isn't a radical legal theory. This is how the system works. The courts are there to check presidential overreach, whether Donald Trump likes it or not. And that's exactly why Karoline Leavitt is panicking. Because the very states that Donald Trump and the GOP claimed should have all the power are now using that power against them. And rather than admit that they were wrong, they're doing what they always do, playing the victim, attacking the courts, and pretending that the law doesn't apply to them. And let's talk about why Karoline Leavitt's meltdown isn't just embarrassing, it's tradition. If there's one thing that Donald Trump's administration has perfected, it's hiring press secretaries who are completely unqualified, overly confident, and absolutely terrible at their jobs. Sean Spicer lied about crowd sizes, showed up to work with mismatched shoes, and literally hid in the bushes to avoid reporters. Sarah Huckabee Sanders got caught lying about the FBI in the Mueller report and didn't even blink. Kayleigh McEnany promised she'd never lie, then spent her entire time at the podium doing exactly that. And now we've got Karoline Leavitt, a bargain bin, off-brand Kayleigh McEnany. All the smugness, none of the skill, and flopped so badly she may as well have walked out there with clearance stickers on her suit. But Leavitt's screw-up isn't just stupid, it's dangerous. When she stood in front of the cameras and said, "You cannot have a low-level district court judge filing an injunction to usurp the executive authority of the president," she wasn't just wrong. She was testing the waters for something much worse. Because the real issue here isn't just that Leavitt doesn't understand the law. It's that she's laying the groundwork for Trump to start ignoring court rulings altogether. And that's exactly why Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel called her out. Dana Nessel, who actually knows the law, wasn't having it. She broke it down point by point, explaining that yes, even low-level federal judges have the power to block illegal executive actions. That's been the case since 1803. And what's more disturbing, she pointed out that Leavitt wasn't just spewing nonsense. She was signaling that Donald Trump's team might try to ignore this ruling entirely. And that's the real danger here. Congress has already abdicated its responsibility when it comes to holding Donald Trump accountable. The legislative branch is supposed to be a check on executive overreach, but Republicans in Congress have completely given up on that. That leaves only one safeguard left, the courts. And now Trump's press secretary is out there openly questioning whether they even have to listen to those courts. That's why this case isn't just about thousands of workers getting their jobs back. It's about whether Donald Trump and his people even plan to follow the law at all. And Karoline Leavitt, she's just the latest bargain bin BS Barbie sent out to justify something far more dangerous. This is the test. There's a report due on Monday that will show whether they're actually following this court order or if they're planning to ignore it. We'll see how that turns out. And if they think that they can get away with ignoring the courts now, they're going to try it again and again until they pass the point of no return. That's why this matters. That's why Dana Nessel and other AGs are fighting back. And that's the fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.